Long ago in Israel lived Jesus Christ. He was the Son of God and lived to spread the word of God to the people of Israel. Throughout his life, he performed many impressive miracles and traveled the land, helping the poor and needy. Over time, he built up a following of devoted disciples who traveled with him and listened to him as he taught his lessons of love and compassion. Jesus would go out into the remote locations and find a place where he could speak to as many of his followers as possible all at once. Sometimes he would climb on top a mountain, other times into a boat so that he could address his crowd of disciples. He shared with them many important stories known as parables. These parables are a series of tales that have a hidden meaning, and Jesus used them to teach his followers how to live according to the Word of God. One day, Jesus gave a very important sermon, known as the Sermon on the Mount. During this sermon, Jesus told his followers parables about the need to keep faith and believe in the Word of God. We can learn a lot from the parables he told that day, one of which was the story of the two builders. One was foolish, and the other was wise.
Gather round, my disciples. I have a story to share with you about making the right decisions in our lives and how every decision can affect us in the future. Once, there were two men who ventured away from the city they were born in to build themselves new homes far away. The two men walked along the banks of a mighty river, looking for the perfect place to each build their homes. The river ran through a great valley and would make a perfect shelter for a new home. Eventually, the two men found a spot that they liked.
This looks like a good spot to build. Just the right distance. Now we just have to choose where to build.
The two men looked around the area, and eventually, each man said he knew where he would build his house.
I know where I'm going to build, right here by the riverbanks. By building here on the sand, I can easily get water straight into my house without having to walk all the way down the valley.
As you wish, but I will be building my house up there. That way, I can build on rock instead of the sand. I would prefer my house to stand on solid ground. I have to walk further to get my water, but I would prefer that rather than build it on the soft sand of the riverbank.
And so, the two men got to work building their homes. Eventually, they finished. They were skilled workers, and by the time they were finished, each of them had built a fine home. For a time, they both enjoyed their homes. The builder on the sand was especially happy that he had such easy access to the water of the mighty river and enjoyed taking baths as often as he could. While the builder on the rock could not enjoy the water of the river as freely as his neighbor, he was still happy with his choice to build upon the solid rock at the top of the valley. Until one day, everything changed. A mighty storm appeared on the horizon, and quickly the angry clouds made their way across the skies towards the valley where the two builders had made their new homes. When the storm arrived, chaos was unleashed. The rain fell and would not cease. For days it rained. Then those days turned to weeks. Raging winds blew constantly, and still the rain would not stop. As the storm continued to rage on without any signs of stopping, the river began to fill up more and more. Eventually, the river could not handle all the extra water, and the banks of the river burst. When the builder on the sand saw the great flood rush towards his home, he finally understood his foolishness. The flood rushed towards the newly built house that he was so proud of and immediately destroyed it. The walls crumbled, the floor was swept away, and everything the foolish builder owned was washed away into the swelling river. As the foolish builder watched his house crumble and his entire life be washed away, the other house in the valley remained standing strong. The other builder was wise in his decision. By choosing to build on the solid rock, he created a better foundation for his home, meaning that the strong rain and wind didn't shake his home, and the flooding river did not wash it away. Even when there was not a trace left of the foolish builder's home, the wise builder remained safe and sound from the storm in his home, built on solid rock.
Please let me in. My home has been washed away, and I am left with nothing.
Thankfully, the wise builder was also a kind man and did not allow the foolish builder to suffer for his mistake. Instead, he welcomed him into his home, and there they both waited until eventually the great storm passed.
You see, my friend, this is why I chose to build my house here, safe up on solid rock. Although I may not have had easy access to the river as you, and it was not so easy for me to enjoy luxuries like a bath whenever I felt like one, I still chose to build on solid rock and not on soft sand that could so easily allow the house to crumble and fall.
How wise of you, my friend. I now see the mistake I made. I should have thought more carefully and made sure to create a proper foundation for my house to make sure it kept standing, even in the most harsh of storms. Now I must rebuild my entire life from scratch because of my foolish mistake. But one thing is for certain, when I build my new home, I will learn from your wisdom and build it on the rock and not the sand.
And so the foolish builder saw the error of his ways and learned from the wisdom of his neighbor, the wise builder.
By the time Jesus had finished telling the parable of the wise and foolish builders, the crowd that had gathered to listen to him had grown to an enormous number. When the story was finished, the crowd were all silent, astonished at the story and the power of Jesus' words. Paul, one of Jesus' most beloved followers, asked the great prophet to explain the story.
Jesus, please, share with us the meaning of this incredible tale.
Well, Paul, let's see. What can we learn from the decisions that the two builders took?
Mary, another of Jesus' followers, stepped forward to offer an answer.
That we need to be careful about where we build our homes. Building on rock gave the wise builder a good foundation and a strong house, and building on sand gave the foolish builder a bad foundation and a weak house. The storms we face in our lives could be anything: loss, sadness, difficulty. But as long as we build our lives on a good foundation, we can remain strong and unbroken by these challenges.
And what is the foundation of a good life?
As the rock was a solid foundation for the wise builder's house, the Word of God is a strong foundation for our lives. If we listen to the wisdom and love that the Lord offers us and build our lives on it, we can enjoy a solid life and withstand any storm. We all need to be like the wise builder. As rock is a foundation for a strong house, God is the foundation for a strong life.
Understanding the parable, the crowd was amazed. That day at the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus taught his followers a lesson they would never forget: to make the Word of God the strongest foundation for a good and successful life.